Hello everyone, and welcome back to First Web Designer Show, which is a podcast, a videocast, where basically I invite guests with different expertise from different from different projects, different websites, different companies, to share their expertise and share their knowledge about things that really matter to you, and talk about the questions that you've asked. And today we're going to talk about portfolios.
Let's say a big thank you to our friends over at webdesignernews.com, which is this episode's sponsor. And webdesignernews.com was built for web designers and web developers, just like you and myself. It's a single location to discover the latest and most significant stories on the web. And just a few topics they cover are business, design, tech, typography, UX and UI, and of course development, and many more topics. And here are just a few featured publications that you can find on webdesignernews.com. And they are Medium, CodePen, The New York Times, The Verge, Vox, and The Next Web. And of course ourselves, First Web Designer. All most popular First Web Designer posts can also be found on webdesignernews.com. So please go ahead and check out our today's sponsors, our friends over at webdesignernews.com.
And my guest today, his name is Wes McDowell. He is a creative director of Deepend, which is a digital and branding agency, as well as he is a co-host of Deeply Graphic Design Cast podcast. And so really he wants to talk about today about basically how most freelancers don't put enough thought into their portfolio websites, even though they can be your biggest sales tool. So he's going to cover a few actionable items, a few actionable steps that you can do, and items you can add to your portfolio site to stand out from the pack. Welcome on the show, Wes.
Thanks for having me, James.
So I assume you are, again, very excited to talk about this topic, because in fact you were the one who came forward and said, that we haven't covered this topic in depth, and you'd be happy to share your knowledge. And where do you usually start when it comes to this topic? Perhaps describing the problem, I assume?
Yeah, the problem definitely is usually, like you said, most creatives kind of treat their website as more of an afterthought, as more of a, hey, just look at what I've done. When you have such an opportunity to make it much, much more than that, you really have the opportunity to make your website what I call a 24-hour-a-day ambassador for your brand. Meaning when you're sleeping, it's there representing you. So there's so many little things you can do to gain trust from potential clients and to come across as a real person that they want to work with. Okay,
and so this is actually very important that you said real person to work with, because I myself have seen many portfolios, good graphics, good big clients, but there is no personality that comes across. So maybe, if it was down to me, I would start with how to implement personality in portfolio websites, how to make sure that they're not just plain, cold, simple, sales pages.
Yeah, it's really important to come across as a human being, because think about even when you're getting hired somewhere, they want to hire not only someone who's good for the job, but also someone they want to work with. So you have such an opportunity through video, through good copywriting, photos, all that kind of stuff, to really come across as someone real that they would actually want to work with. Most creatives just kind of, if you look on their websites, they're nowhere to be found. You can see their work, and that's about it.
That's it. And so what are the steps then? You mentioned video, you mentioned, because for instance, I know it's a big thing now in these days, the culture, the values, make sure that the person fits in with company's values and cultures, and so that they agree with these things. So what are the ways that you can get your personality across? Maybe a few actionable items and steps?
Yeah, okay, so one of my favorite things to do, and it's funny that we're talking about this today because I just finished shooting a new About video for my homepage. If you go there now, if you go to the deependdesign.com, you'll see my old one. I did that a couple years ago. It's fine, but it's kind of in an older style with a more animated explainer video type feel. Just did a new one, though, that is really going to kind of show what we're all about here at the Deep End. Lets people meet me. And so basically, that's about me for you. The best thing you can do is just make a really personalized video that you can put in several key areas on your website. You can put that on your homepage, and you can put it on your About page, and as well as any landing pages that you want people to arrive at. It's always good to have it right there at their fingertips, just to kind of virtually meet you.
Okay. Now, it's good for someone like me and you. We have done videos, we have done podcasts, we are confident and all that. Some people, especially designers, sometimes happen to be introverts, or maybe they don't have professional access to, professional videos and video equipment. So is it better to still put up something basic, low quality, or better nothing at all? I don't know, a picture perhaps?
Yeah, okay. So it's an interesting thing, and I don't think that if you're trying to get hired, it's okay to just say, I'm an introvert. I don't think you're going to get very far if you just resign yourself to that. You may be an introvert. I'm kind of an introvert as well. I honestly, most nights I hang out at home, but I think it's very important in a professional setting to come across as confident. Otherwise, let's say you meet with a client, and trust me, I've interviewed these people before for graphic designer positions with my company, and when you meet somebody that just has no kind of charisma about them, you're going to have a hard time getting hired, and that's something that you really should work on within yourself. Separate question, though, you asked about the high quality video.
That's it, yeah.
It's really not necessary that it be super high end, Hollywood quality produced video. That's great if you have the means to do so. I happen to have a friend who's a videographer who helped me out with this last one, so I think it is going to look really good. But if you don't have that, you've got an iPhone, you've got a smartphone, good enough. It's something that allows you to come across as a real person. And, if you have Photoshop, you can certainly edit it together. Photoshop has those tools in it to edit video. So I guess I'm kind of saying no excuses.
No, that's
you can do it.
I totally agree with you when it comes regards introverts. Because I can't remember, someone on a TED Talk said that introvert doesn't mean you're always shy, you can't get confidence. It's just that, you prefer to have less people around you. But you can still, as an introvert, get your confidence across, which is what you said. One more thing I wanted to ask. Regards Periscope. I don't know, you perhaps have seen many people started using it, and I witnessed how a lot of web designers now have got many clients out of Periscope. Do you have anything to say about that?
That's awesome. I've actually never used Periscope. I saw it used at a party one time I was at, and it was really cool, but I've never thought about using it for any kind of business purpose. But why not? You certainly could.
That's a bit raw then, I guess. Next step I can see you want to talk about is case studies. It's an overused term. Everyone kind of uses them, but I guess it depends on how you use it. And you have something to say about it?
Yeah, case studies are absolute gold on your website. Most people just want to... The tendency is, let's just show our work, our most popular work, or our most the work we like the most. Take it a step further and make several of your projects a case study where basically potential clients can see exactly how you've helped someone else like them in the past, which translates into them having confidence that you can do the same for them.
That's it.
So when we're talking about case studies, you're going to want to pick some of your favorite projects, and it's really important to choose a client that other clients can relate to. So don't make it overly technical. I think anything in the consumer-facing businesses works nicely, like a restaurant, something that's just easily understood versus some kind of a more esoteric business-to-business company that people are kind of wondering, I don't know exactly what they do. The point is you want people to relate to it. And you want to try to pick someone that you can point to a tangible improvement that you made. Let's just use the example of web design. If you know that you had a client with a website that you made a substantial improvement in their click-throughs or their conversions, then that's a good one to pick, you know? And so within a case study, what I like to think of it as is a story. That's really all it is. You're telling a story from start to finish, how the client came to you, what was their problem, what prerequisites did they have. For instance, do they need to keep their existing color scheme? Do they need to keep certain areas of the website? These are all things that you had to work within. So make sure to talk about that. And also talk about what you found out in the research phase. And then just tell the story about how all these factors guided your decision and your solution in the end, and explain your thought process. Like, remember in high school when you were doing a math problem, the teacher's like, show your work. Same thing here. We want to see a little peek in your brain and how you came to these conclusions. And lastly, include as much tangible data as you can. And if it's a website, make sure you have access to their analytics when you set them up with that. That way you can go in and you can see exactly how many people are going to this website, how many people are converting, and that's data you can use in your case study.
So would you then say that instead of having, 10 portfolio items, just stick to 3 case study stories, and they would be even more powerful than just 10 pictures of your work?
Well, I don't think it's an either or. I think what you should do is pick your favorite 10. Let's just throw that number out there. And then on 3 of them, have case studies, as many as you want. And, that way you can show a more breadth of work, but then you can take 3 and really drill down into here's what we did,
Right, okay.
And and you can do this in one of 2 ways. You can do a written case study, and if you do that, you're going to want to make sure you format it for the web. Think about, more magazine than novel, so you're going to want to break it up into bullet lists, short paragraphs, and use images whenever you can. And the better way, getting back to what we were talking about a little bit ago with the video, why not do a video case study? It really makes it come to life. You can get right in front of the camera, intro it a little bit, show visuals of what you did, and possibly even have your client talk a little bit on the video as well about how you really helped them out. That makes for a super compelling case study.
And so I assume screencast walkthroughs still work in this kind of situation?
Yeah. And the thing about the case studies, they really don't have to look like they've got really high production value either. You can literally just stand in front of a whiteboard if you wanted to.
Okay.
They just want to see.
And one more thing you mentioned, in that if possible, it would be nice to have your client talk about his or her experience working with you, which brings me to the next point, which is something you want to talk about, is testimonials. Yeah. Testimonials go hand in hand with case studies because basically it works as social proof. Think about the last time you bought something on Amazon, or if you were researching a restaurant that you wanted to go to, what's the first thing we do? We look for the star ratings, right? Like, I don't know too many people that are going to want to buy any kind of product online or eat at any restaurant without seeing what other people think of it. So, the testimonials really give your future clients access to your past clients, which is cool because now they know what they're getting themselves into, and it makes them feel more confident hiring you. So, and the cool thing is there are multiple ways that you can go about asking for these testimonials because most people don't really know how to ask, and coming right out and just asking for a testimonial can often lead to a weak or poorly worded testimonial. For instance, if you just ask them, how did I do? How did my website benefit your company? And that's it. They're likely just to kind of talk in generalities. So what I like to do is give them a feedback survey with specific questions in it, and just give it to them and say, I really value your opinion, and I can use this info going forward, which you can.
It can be used for that purpose as well. And the client's usually just flattered to be asked, and when they have time to do it, they'll do it. So what I like to do, it's a 3-question survey that kind of, with all answers together, make for a very compelling, rich testimonial. And those 3 questions are this. Number 1, what were your existing frustrations with your fill-in-the-blank website, logo, project, etc. before coming to me? Then the second question is, how happy were you with the finished product? Did it meet or exceed your expectations? And the third is, how would you describe your experience working with me? And then a few months later, you can ask another follow-up question, which is, how is your new logo, website, whatever it is, impacted your business so far? So what we've got here are 3 or 4 questions that when they answer them together, you can take those answers and edit them down. Don't get creative with your editing. Keep the meaning the same. But edit them into a very succinct, short testimonial. Edit it down, then send it to your client and say, hey, listen, I love your feedback. Do you mind? I've edited it down. Do you mind if I use this blurb on my website as a testimonial? They'll almost always say yes.
Let's say a big thank you to our friends over at webdesignernews.com, which is this episode's sponsor. And webdesignernews.com was built for web designers and web developers, just like you and myself. It's a single location to discover the latest and most significant stories on the web. And just a few topics they cover are business, design, tech, typography, UX and UI, and of course development, and many more topics. And here are just a few featured publications that you can find on webdesignernews.com. And they are Medium, CodePen, The New York Times, The Verge, Vox, and The Next Web. And of course ourselves, First Web Designer. All most popular First Web Designer posts can also be found on webdesignernews.com. So please go ahead and check out our today's sponsors, our friends over at webdesignernews.com.
And one more thing you mentioned before is LinkedIn. How can we implement LinkedIn?
Yeah, another great way to ask for a testimonial is just through LinkedIn. They literally have that functionality built in already, where you can just, it's like a templatized email saying, hey, can you please provide me feedback or a recommendation? I definitely recommend personalizing the email and not using the templatized language that LinkedIn came up with. Make it personal. You're likely to get a much better response that way. Then whatever they send you, again, follow it up and say, hey, do you mind if I use this on my website? And they'll almost always say yes. And again, we're taking things a step further because we're getting advanced here. Again, with video. Mm-hmm. So if you can pull off a video testimonial, like 1 or 2 or 3 of these on your website, that is absolute gold, because people will believe a testimonial if it's from a third-party website. So like if it's on Yelp, they'll pretty much unquestioningly believe it. If it's a written review on your site, it has a little less weight because it's your website. You, in theory, can moderate exactly what's on there. But if you have a video testimonial on your website, so much better, because people instinctively can tell if they're being lied to, and they can spot bad acting. You know what I mean? Like if you watch someone talking about a product, you just know if they're lying or not, right? Like we kind of have that built into ourselves. So if you have a client singing your praises on video, nowhere to hide, it's much more believable. Not every client's going to do it. Like we talked about before, the whole introvert syndrome, a lot of people are camera shy. But I think if you ask yourself, you'll know which clients are the ones to ask. And just go pay them a visit, go to their office and bring your iPhone and just ask them these questions, and you should be good to go.
Yeah, as they say, everyone's got their internal BS indicator or filter. Which
Exactly.
actually brings me to one last question. I've seen a lot of sort of beginners trying to do this. At that point where you don't kind of really have any testimonial, they kind of take a fake picture, write down a fake testimonial on your website. You can't really spot whether it's fake or real, but some even go extra mile, say go to Fiverr and purchase a gig where a pretty girl will say like, hello, he did this work for our company, he's amazing. And she's a professional actor, so she could even act. Now, what are the ways for someone to find out it's fake, and what are the risks, and do you recommend even do this?
No, absolutely not. I actually had a client once who their idea was, it wasn't really that bad, but what they wanted to do is take their written testimonials and have an actor kind of act them out. And I said, no way, don't do it. Because unless you have like Meryl Streep doing it, who's just throwing herself into that role and she's going to get the Oscar for it, BS meter, people can tell.
Yeah.
Like, and if the second they can smell that, you're done, you're sunk. Then they know then they don't trust anything on your site.
That's it. No, that's it. I'm glad you disagree with that. Which
Yeah.
actually brings us to the next point, which is your concept of, it's really common sense. Your portfolio page should be your landing page. And obviously, if you messed it up and created some BS, then there's no call to action to be taken. But let's assume people listen to your advice, which they should. They do not use anything fake. Now, what is CTA, which is call to action, all about on landing pages?
Okay, so basically, I think most creatives make the mistake of thinking everyone's going to find them from their homepage. That's not the case for me, because I've built two very distinct landing pages. Our company we specialize in two things: websites and logo design. So each of those services has its own landing page, which is basically just the portfolio page for each of those services. So you're going to want to SEO them out, make sure they're findable online. So use the keywords within the text, use it naturally, don't get spammy with it. And each project ideally should have its own page. So, for example, if you've got your website portfolio page, that's its own landing page. But then you should have a bunch of thumbnails for all your individual projects. Let's say I designed a website for, XYZ law firm. That should be clickable, that thumbnail, and it goes to its own page for that project. On that page, I can use an H1 tag. I can title that page XYZ law firm website design. And then if you want to say the town it's in, do that. The idea here is for every industry you design for, every town you design in, all that stuff, these can all be opportunities for long tail keyword searches. So long tail keywords, for anyone who doesn't know, basically just means instead of searching for web design, you're searching for law firm web design in Chicago. So if you were to type, if that were to be your title, not that many people are probably going to be looking for those terms, but if anyone does, you might just come up on top and get that new business.
Now that's the big thing. Yeah, even we on our website have tried the long tail keywords, and like you said, less traffic but more laser focus. So I'm glad you actually mentioned that. And of course, all of this is being done for call to action. So what are the actions you want the visitor to take? What do you want to happen next as a web professional?
Okay. Well, everyone has to decide that for themselves. The worst thing you can say is, I just want people to come and check out my work. And then what? Like, do you want then just click off and go look at the next person's work? No, you want them to call you. You want them to hire you. So whatever that means for you. For me, what I've decided I want my CTA to be is get a quote. So that gets the ball rolling. They're funneled to a page that has a contact form with, specific questions that are all designed for me to extract as much information from them so that I can then email them back or call them back with a quote. Now I've got a lead. What you don't want to do is just have a general contact page, because again, contact me to go out for coffee or, just to chat? No, you want to be hired. So make your CTA laser focused and crystal clear. Hire me. Get in touch. Get a quote. Something like that. And you're going to want to have that CTA button in a very prominent place, definitely on your landing page, and kind of all across the site. If it's built into the Chrome, like at the top, that's even better.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, glad you mentioned actually more than one, because I know some people, prefer clients to email them, some prefer to call them. Some actually have even done kind of in a tricky way, just sort of, let's just go for a chat, for a coffee, and then try to close the deal.
Yeah.
The people are different.
Then they pounce.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it just depends on how you want to operate. If you want phone calls, then maybe that's your CTA. Like a button that says call us or call me, and it pops up with a phone number. Maybe that's what you want. But ideally, you always want to get some information about them. You don't want to leave it up to them just to call you. I wouldn't think.
Okay, so have we missed anything? Or have you covered everything you wanted to talk about today regards portfolios being your landing pages and conversion pages?
Yeah, I think we've got everything. One thing I would go back and say is with testimonials, if you have any Yelp reviews, not a lot of us do because we're maybe not to that size where we have a lot of third-party reviews on third-party websites.
Yeah.
However, if you do have Yelp reviews, you're going to want to link to them. Unless they're terrible, then maybe you don't want to. But hopefully you have good Yelp reviews, in which case you want to have a very clear button to where people can go check those out, because those are trustworthy.
That's it, and I actually haven't seen many use it, because it's not very often when you, like you said, are to that level. So if someone happens to have them, then another way to stand out. Perhaps, do you mind to quickly run again through it, like a little checklist, what we covered today, to sum it all up?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So basically, the goal for your site is you want to make sure that as your 24-hour-a-day ambassador for your brand, it needs to be there to greet users at all hours of the night, all hours of the day, and just show you're someone they want to work with. You're going to want to do an about video, and I don't think we covered this before, but the point of this video is simply to welcome potential clients to your site and possibly kind of point them around to the different areas you might want them to visit. Like at the end, you might say, and check out our work on the portfolio page. Click the get a quote button when you're ready to get the ball rolling. But you don't want to sell at this point. You don't want to have a hard act now and I'll throw in this. That's not the point of the video. Then you want to have case studies. You want to tell the story of working with past clients from start to finish. Ideally a video, but if you don't, I understand it's a tall order. If you can't do a video, you're bare minimum going to want to have some great text, conversational style. It does not have to be like a high school book report. It can be very conversational, plain English, including as much data as you can, images, bullet lists, break it up. Just make it easy to read online. Testimonials, you're going to want to have as many as you can get. And ideally, you would want 1 to 3 video testimonials. I just think those are so important and they connect so much better than a written one. And if all you can get is written, then please ask them for a photo. And that lends its own set of believability to it. It makes it more believable than if it were just text, because they can put a face with it. And one easy way of getting that is just by asking them if you can use their LinkedIn photo. They'll usually say yes. So that's testimonials, link to your Yelp page. Make sure your portfolio pages are optimized as landing pages. So you're going to want to break out your different services. Don't have everything on one page, even if they're filterable. I know a lot of people do that. They'll have all their work with like a cool filter that says, I want to see just websites or just logo designs or just print. That looks really cool and it looks slick, but the problem with that is you're missing out on the opportunity for 3 different landing pages. So don't do that. And make sure you've got a crystal clear call to action. to direct people to exactly take the action that you want them to take in the end.
That's it, and I'm glad actually, that's the last step, call to action, because I mean, you've given out so much value bombs today and so many action steps that you deserve to reveal what is kind of your action step. What would you recommend to our audience to do next? How can they get in touch perhaps with you? Where can they find you if they want to ask some more things? We just don't want to leave them hanging at the end of this conversation.
We wouldn't want that. We wouldn't want that. As you mentioned before, I do host a podcast available on iTunes. It's called the Deeply Graphic Design Cast. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, something's wrong with the feed to where if you go on iTunes, the way you'd search it is by typing in the Deep End Design. That's what the podcast is listed under. So check that out. Check out my show there. And we do answer listener questions on every episode. So what you're going to want to do is send in any questions you have to questions@thedeependdesign.com. And we'll be sure to, if it's something we haven't already covered and we feel like we can do a good job answering, we will answer it live on the show.
Yeah, and of course we will include links as well in our show notes, so people can click straight away and get to your to your email and to your show. One last question. In a way, we left our audience hanging into call to action, because obviously, the next step we suggest them to do is create, call me, hire me, email me button. Yeah. What happens when a client gets in touch with them? Is it okay if perhaps I invite you again to talk about that process? How do you talk to clients to make sure you're not underpriced, you don't abuse your clients? Maybe share a little bit of that on our next episode?
Absolutely. I'd love to be back.
Fantastic. Great. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thanks a lot for making your time to come here
too,
and
James.
share your value bombs. Thank you very much, Wes.
Of course. Thanks for having me, James.